Hello and welcome to another fantastic Friday here at Go Narrative, and I hope wherever you are as well. I'm Matthew Woodget from Go Narrative, and we're here to do what we love doing on a Friday afternoon, and that is another Power of 3D Story homepage teardown. That's right. Before we get to that, before we get to websites, before we talk about startups, before we talk about growth, let's go back. Let's go way back. Let's go all the way back to 1978. My parents and I had just moved from the south of England to the north. New job for dad, new town. It was even my dad's dream home. Well, it was going to be. That was the plan. It was a Georgian townhouse, but it was crumbling. So at the time, it was more of a building site than a dream home. And in this building site, the only safe place to leave a baby like me was the attic. And not just all the way up to the attic, not just the 3 floors to get there, but 4 floors if you count the cold, hard stone of the cellar, reached in express elevator fashion through a hole in the floor right outside my bedroom door. That demonstrates the severity of the building site situation. It's true, however, the room was a refuge. Toys, blankets, a bit of peace. But I didn't want peace. I wanted people, connection. I was a baby. And then Mum was pregnant again, but it gets even better. The job that moved us up there, Dad lost it, laid off. So chaos was everywhere. And it was in that chaos that my mother, my anchor, was stretched super thin, doing her best, but emotionally unpredictable. And that's where it started. The early inklings of what would one day become my superpower, if you will, pattern recognition, trying to read the situation, trying to make sense of her, of everything. That was my first lesson in story. Not words, not fairy tales, survival. If we were to jump forward a little bit in time to 1986, I started experimenting with a diary in those days. And a few short years later, in 1990, it became a daily habit. That habit, it is still alive to this very day. Every night before I go to sleep, handwritten, pen and paper, the old-fashioned way, I write down what happened that day. Thoughts, feelings, trying to make sense of my story. And funnily enough, I've recently learned that there are fewer people who've kept a handwritten diary for 35 plus years than have won Olympic gold or have summited Everest. Not bragging, just proof that I've lived story, I've written story, I've studied story, I tried to make sense of story. And I'm always trying to make sense of story. I'm doing that for a long time. Now, if we were to take another time jump, this one, quite a big one, all the way forward to 2012, turns out that I landed my dream job, chief storyteller of a Microsoft business division. And when I got there, I did what we all do. I Googled with Bing for tools, templates, frameworks, but there were none. Not for business storytelling, not truly. There were only entertainment frameworks. And I panicked. And I don't want you to panic. You don't have to go through what I had to go through. I don't want you to hunt through things like the hero's journey for help. Overly complex, not at all appropriate for business storytelling, save for maybe the right type of advertisement or a keynote maybe, especially if the hero that's being in question is a customer. But it's such a limited slit to see through when it comes to what this thing, story, is really all about. And the panic that I had was, I, like every good employee, wanted to find ways to accelerate things, right? Just like you're here today. You're trying to accelerate your knowledge, probably of, and answers on a postcard or in the chat, probably storytelling, right? Well, as much as I love storytelling, I hate it compared to what story is. Because without a great story, the telling doesn't really matter. But if you've got a great story, you don't even have to be a great storyteller to do a good job. And the problem with the hero's journey and its 17 steps and the dark night of the soul and all that complexity is it's not positioned as a tool to help you tap into this power. And on the other end of the spectrum, there's the overly simple frameworks, the beginning, middle, and end. Beginning, middle, and end, Matthew, that's all you need to worry about when it comes to a story. Okay, great. What do I do at the beginning? Where is the beginning? Where should I start? The end, is that a call to action because it's business? Or is there something about the end of a story and how I need to finish it? You see, the problem with simple is simple can also be abstract. So for me at the time, I became an interpreter of story, and that was fine. I was getting paid to do it. It was my job, right? And those getting paid for my science fiction novels could wait to a different later date. And so I did that. And before I knew it, I was being invited to help out across Microsoft. And it was where I first had the dream, in fact, for what would one day become Go Narrative, because I was effectively consulting within Microsoft as an expert on storytelling. And I'd always been a generalist, which was a really interesting situation to find myself in. And it wasn't until tragedy hit in 2015 that I really woke up. Everything shifted. Within 6 months, I'd resigned, golden handcuffs be damned. I spent a year at a marketing agency, learned how to run a small business in the modern age, double their revenue, and then in 2017, Go Narrative was born. And that is when I really started to figure it all out. That is when I found my Goldilocks. So on the one hand, we had the too complicated of the hero's journey. On the other hand, We had the too simple of the beginning, middle, and end. And it was the Goldilocks that I've been hunting for. And it's Goldilocks that we're going to use today. Something that is simple enough that it's easy to remember, but has enough depth and extensiveness for you to go as deep as you need when it comes to understanding your story, writing your story, telling your story, or doing that for your company, your startup, your customers, you name it. These are the basic building blocks. And that is why I said a few minutes ago that I'm more interested in story than storytelling. Because story isn't about entertainment. Story is our operating system. It's how we survive. It's how we connect. It's how we communicate. And it's how we adapt and find our way through the world. We are living and breathing our own story every single day as the central character in our story. And because everybody else is doing the same, story isn't just our operating system, it's also our API. It's our communications modality. It's our encoding approach. And that is why things like books, movies eventually became a thing. Because the best telling of a story taps into that operating system. It's not just how we understand the world and share what we know. It goes deep, deep into our neuroscience. It's literally the way that our neurons are working, the way that serotonin and dopamine and cortisol are being released or suppressed. When we hear a story, we live a story. It's this magic of something you may have heard of called mirror neurons. We put ourselves inside of it. We feel it. And again, that's why it became so powerful as an entertaining tool, because when you tune it and tweak it in the right ways, you can have control over that. You can tell a story that's going to make people feel ups and downs, and at the ultimate end of the day, feel good about the story that they've just lived through by hearing it. But again, that's only one narrow slit that we see the true power of story through. Why? Because story changes the world. Our ability to tell a story, to put other people in that story by telling it, changes how people feel. And when we feel something, we act. I want you to take your hand or your arm or a shoulder or something, and I want you to take your finger or a pen and just poke it. Poke it. Feel that. That is a feeling. That is not something fluffy. That is a feeling. You do that hard enough and it will hurt. Feelings aren't fluffy. Feelings are functional. Feelings get us to do something. If you put your finger into a flame and you feel that pain, you recoil from it. I was having a conversation with my physiotherapist about a pain that I had to work through. And I said, what is this pain telling me? Is it like a flame that's telling me to back out and stay away? No, it turns out that it's something that I had to work through to build the muscles that would take the strain to avoid the weakest link in the chain feeling the pain. So when we feel something, we're moved to act. If you have a splinter in your finger, you're moved to act. You're moved to remove it. And feeling can also be positive. We can want something for ourselves or for somebody else, and we can then pursue that thing. In our lives, we've got our personal lives and passions and the people that are in our lives that we care deeply about. We've got our companies, our jobs, our roles that we want to achieve things in, our career to support our success in life. So we pursue things because we want them. We feel that we need them, or we feel that we want them. And then we start to get into the realm of emotions, which are the fancy human way of wrapping these feelings in something that's a little bit more abstract and complicated and weaved into our language. And that's when we talk about things like love and hate and fear and anxiety and anticipation. That's the connection from the cerebral intellect of us as humans all the way down into the physical sensations. And that is not only a vital part of our existence. When we tell our stories aren't interesting unless they've got people in them that things are happening to, and those people are feeling things. And that, my friends, is a vital component of why we talk about this stuff before we go and look at a website. Because when we go and look at today's website, I want you to think about that. Are we seeing that? Are we seeing emotions? Are we seeing feelings? Or are we seeing high-level communications that haven't done the due diligence to go down into the depth of the human experience? And that, my friends, is the power of story. By understanding our experiences, understanding that construct, if you will, of the story, we then put ourselves in the best possible position to go and tell stories. Pretty cool stuff though, right? And all of this leads me to the heart of the matter, and that is where we start a story. And it's with those wants and those needs, those feelings, right? Now, I don't know about you, but as many things as I've ever wanted in my life, personally and professionally, there always seems to be something standing in the way. I could be thirsty and wanting a drink of water and having run out of water. Luckily, I haven't, but I still had to pick this up. Not a lot of resistance, but if it had been empty, I'd have to wait until I'm finished with our conversation today, and then I could go get some. And that is the difficulty that stands in the way of us getting to what we want. And then we have to find a way through it. We have to find a way through the difficulty to the desire, to the thing that we want. And that, my friends, that is the power of 3D story. And the power of 3D story is the desire, what we want. It's the difficulty that stands in the way. And the fancy French word denouement, which means the untangling of the knot. And all of this is all about what we want, or our customers want, or our potential investors want. Everything keys off of that. It is the center. And then there is the difficulty that stops us getting to what we want. And then there's how we figure out how to untangle that knot and get through it to what we want. Now, denouement, fancy French word, untangling of the knot, I get it. You might be thinking, hey, that's not particularly simple, and you said this is meant to be simple. the beauty of that slight complexity is that it will help you remember. And that's not just because it's a little bit complicated, it's the details. It's the untangling of the knot. That's the feature of denouement. And I want you to bear that in mind because it's a part of your solution to getting to what you want. It's not everything. You still have to do the work. You still have to do the effort, right? And the same goes with our customers and our investors. The problem is, in most attempts at storytelling, in business in particular, when we get to the end, we get to the payoff, if you will, or where we're going. And this happens in the biggest companies and the smallest companies, and I've seen it across the board. We fall into the trap of talking about our solution as the provider. And it's so much more than that. Even if you're providing that knitting needle to untangle the knot, still the customer who's going through that effort. It's still your investor who's seeking to understand the data that you're putting up for Series B and why you think the stories in the market support those numbers and the proof that you have to support that theory. It's a part of the solution, and the solution is always your customers or your VCs or your partners. It's not yours. You're a part of it, but you're not the whole thing. And that's really, really important to bear in mind. So bear that in mind as we continue to take the next steps here. Okay, we are ready to pick our victim for the day. And I figured, how about a little fun? And for those of you who maybe have an English background or a British background, or spent any time in Britain, either as a child or with children, you may have heard of a TV show called Blue Peter. And Blue Peter is a kids show, and it's got everything, educational stuff, entertaining things. There's a really great one from the 80s where Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher were on talking about Star Wars, and it gives you a kind of sense for the diversity of things. And they would also do cooking on Blue Peter, and they would go through the beginning of the process, and then they would get to a point and they would say, here's one I prepared earlier. So what I'm going to do is we're going to try something a little bit new today, exciting. And if that doesn't work out, here's one I prepared earlier. We do have one, and we're going to start, however, with pick a random website from the AI, machine learning, or tech SaaS industry based in Seattle. Make that say in. Post Series A. Swap these around so you can see them, and I'll zoom in. Post Series A, pre-Series B, and suggest it to me. Make the suggestion before performing the teardown. I don't want it to go rushing into the teardown. Let's have a look at what the Go Narrative website story teardown custom GPT comes back with. And well, that's interesting, because the one I prepared earlier is Gradial. So we actually have their website open. Why Gradial? AI machine learning, Seattle based. Okay, so it hits all the notes. So we're going to say yes, we'll do that, but we're going to do a couple things. Notice that the Gradial website's got a bit of animation in it. So we will go back and we'll say, yes, do this site and see attached, just in case there's any content delivery network caching issues going on. Sometimes it'll pick up an older site. So we'll do this, paste it in. And I'm a huge fan of above the fold. So I'm going to say, let's initially focus above the fold, which is the first image I provided. And if I reload this, okay, so we do have two images because there's a reveal the site does. Then I've provided a few more screenshots below the fold. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll grab a couple screenshots below the fold. Hop back over to the GPT, and then we'll do one more. I can grab both of these in this space. Now, what did I encourage you to think about when we were talking a few minutes ago? I said, let's keep that in mind when we look at the website. Let's consider emotions. Let's consider feeling. Remember, we were talking about feelings are functional. I had you poking your hand and talking about what pain is and how feelings are functional and they drive us to act, right? And the emotions are that kind of higher level. I'm going to have this run in the background while we go back over to the website. What do we see? Do we see people, and do we see people experiencing emotions? Or even better than that, do we see people being described, or any of the feelings, the sort of the physical sensations being covered? Is there the pit in the stomach sensation, or the hairs on the back of your neck as you realize that your security with security clients? One thing that frequently has come up in recently is heads of IT or security CIOs do not want to be on the sharp end of the legal stick, right? And if you're a CIO and you are, then the hairs being on the back of your neck might be one of the physical sensations that you experience. So what are we seeing here? Gradial agents. Well, actually, let's look at the first thing that popped up. The content supply chain is messy. Content supply chain messy. Experiment, migrate, optimize, personalize, QA. So what did I say there? Content supply chain messy. Content supply chain messy. Content supply chain messy. No people. And messy is not it's not even getting to an emotional level, is it? Unless we were talking about messy thoughts or too many things on your plate, too many priorities, or chaos dragging you down. We might start to get into it, but the word itself isn't. I'm just looking for all those potential angles, right? And then we've got Gradial agents accelerate your content supply chain. Okay, Gradial. So the company name, agents, technology, accelerate a state change, your content, so we're starting to like think about the customer a little bit, right? Supply chain, the thing that they're operating within. So there's nothing there that's really about people. And from the accelerate perspective, the question is, okay, so if we're talking about accelerating, slow, fast, there's obviously something going on there, right? What is it? Why does it matter? And then we've got focus on creating while AI-driven workflows keep your brand consistent, relevant, and growing faster and more affordably. Now, Gradial have probably got product market fit because they're already Series A, as they proudly announce at the top here. See what's coming. Congrats, by the way. And also, by the way, I do like to say, whether you're a startup and you've got investors and customers and product market fit to worry about, and your website, or you're a corporation and you've got all of the buy-in and the politics, and you've got to figure out your website, that it's very easy to let the website fall by the wayside, languish, or be subjected to the core classical product information dumped on the web. Imagine you're at the epitomous cocktail party, right? And you're Gradial and you're starting a conversation with somebody. Guarantee you don't say this. There could be an edge case where there's people have literally been doing it rapid fire, and you come up and somebody says, what about you guys? And we do often get asked what we do, right? When is it effective, or when has it been effective for you, right? When you get asked that question, when do people stay listening? Is it when you describe the what, or is it describe the why? Like, I love helping, right? Or we deliver. It's probably more the why, right? It's human. It draws people in, gives people a reason to care. And the thing is with a website is our cocktail party on the web. It's our best foot forward on the web. It's public, it's out there. It's the thing our investors are going to go and look at. It's the thing that customers are going to see, partners are going to see. This is the opportunity for us to engage, to be memorable, to connect, and to do that in a way that's going to connect not just with that one person, but through that person to other people, right? And facts and what isn't enough. Now, it's important. It's a part of the picture. You will never hear me say, only tell fluffy stories that don't have any functional benefits, that don't have any data. Stories at their core are information delivery mechanisms. Information delivery mechanisms about our experience in the world. The reason why we get interested and lean in when a friend starts to tell us a story is what happened to them. So the what is important, right? But why we lean in is because of the emotional state that our friend is when they turn up late and they start telling us about this crazy driver that caused this pileup that they only just managed to miss, right? So it's very easy to drop the ball on the website. It's also very doable to fix, and we're going to have a look at some ideas in a second. So focus on creating. So there's some assumptions here that, as a visitor to the website, am I an early stage or a late stage buyer? Early stage, maybe I know the company, maybe I don't. Maybe I found it through a Google search. Late stage, maybe I'm coming back and I need some more, like the next click down, and I'm looking for that. And there's always space for the next click down. Always. Every website's got menus. There's always the opportunity to put all the details somewhere else. Please do. I'm loving how the Gradial colors match our background for our stream, by the way. Make sense? Let's ladder this back up to what we've been talking about. The power of 3D story, desire, difficulty, denouement, what is wanted, creating. Apparently I want to create, and I want consistency. I want to grow. I want to do that quickly, and I want to do it affordably. Classic value proposition messaging, not a story. Now let's keep scrolling down. Do we see any people? Enterprise content supply chains are broken. That's interesting. That draws me in a bit. They're broken. So what's broken? This could get really interesting, couldn't it? Fragmented tools, messy data, endless delays leave marketing teams struggling to deliver consistent omni-channel experiences. It's time for a change that brings speed, clarity, and scalability to operations. I have lost interest. What the heck? Operations, scalability, data, change, consistent, omni-channel, struggling, marketing teams, deliver. I mean, are we playing buzzword bingo, guys and gals? Enterprise content supply chains are broken. What could we do with that? Even if we keep that as it is, and we could make it more human, let's lead with the marketing team. Yet another day and another missed opportunity to reach customers due to lack of consistency, inability to get to market on time, that has left customers so confused, satisfaction scores are down, and as much as you want to grow the business, you can't even get out of the parking lot. I am literally making this up off the top of my head. We'll have a look in a second to see what the GPT has come up with. Gradual breaks the cycle by automating content operations, including authoring, production, QA, page creation, empowering your team to focus. Okay, so it's more buzzwords, more product, more features, and this, again, this stuff needs to exist. Gradual exists for a reason, and this is important stuff as a part of the big picture. But with all things being equal, and your customer is looking at this, and they're looking at your competition, if your competition does a better job engaging, driving action, retention of awareness, that is also then potentially passed to other people, that second example is going to win. And the rhetorical question here is, how do you do that? You put the person who's consuming the content into a scenario that they feel, they understand, and they're compelled to act upon. And the best way to do that is with story. And it doesn't have to be a Quran length, a Bible length, a Constitution length story. It doesn't have to be War and Peace. You don't have to put episode 72 of Star Wars on your homepage. Those are not what we're talking about. Those movies and books and cave paintings are outcomes of the power of story. The power of story. Remember, it's your operating system. Those are outcomes. And the outcome we want to see on a web page is using all of these things we're talking about, tapping into emotions, through them into feelings, motivating people to remember and act and share. And when we do that, we win. And something that's really important, and let me speak directly to every Series A founder out there, and that is, what got you to here is not going to get you to there. Early market. We've talked about this in tech since the 80s. And it's because Jeffrey Moore figured out this thing called the chasm. And most tech companies fall into that. I think 90% of Series A are never around to see the light of day and to tell the story in the future about success. And they've fallen into the chasm. And that is because between that product market fit, the early product market fit, and the early majority product market fit is where that chasm sits. And the difference in those markets is the early markets have the patience. The early markets are experts enough to read stuff like this and to already be either further down the path of understanding or just damn interested in the thing you're doing and the world that you're operating in. But for product market fit to happen in the majority, to get to what Moore calls like the bowling alley and eventually the tornado, that requires connecting at a more human level. And it's so easy to think you don't have to make any changes at this point. And if you're going for Series B and you're kind of 6 to 9 months out going for Series B, you are in the prime place to work on this right now. And I'll tell you why. That's because as you head into Series B, you're going to have to prove the numbers, without a doubt. It's 100% a fact that you need to go in with that. It's not 100% of the fact. What do I mean by that? I mean that you need to know why those numbers are going to work. You need to understand the narrative of the market that you relate to. And we have a framework for that. I'm not going into the details of that today. I'm just sharing the Power of 3D Story framework. But we have the TRIPS storytelling methodology, transformation, reasons to believe, innovation, problems, and stories. And that is transformation, market level narrative. You need to understand that and to be able to articulate it. And you need to be able to articulate the stories that make it real, because it's the stories that make it real that are the numbers that are in your spreadsheet that you're showing to your investors. When you know that your growth is going to be X, or you know that your opportunity is Y, it's because of your understanding of that market level narrative and all of the stories that are going on inside it. And so when a potential investor says to you, well, have you considered the Acme scenario? You can say, if you don't know the Acme scenario, you could say one of two things. Number one, no, but we'll get back to you. We'll look into it. Or number two, you can say, well, you know what? Let me ask you a couple extra questions about Acme. Okay, just get a bit of context. Okay, that is not a million miles away from Prometheus. And Prometheus is a big part of why we know that we're going to hit these numbers, because we know this is happening, this transformation happening, AI in this case. We know that there's all of these companies out there, these individuals who are managing content in this case, and that is a big part of our numbers. And so what you're saying about Acme is it's highly likely that's going to be additive, and the numbers will probably look like X, Y, or Z, but we'll go and we'll look at it. You can't do that if you don't understand the stories. You see, it's not just about storytelling. It's about understanding the stories. And it all starts with understanding your story. When you understand your story, you understand the basics of what makes your story, amazing things happen. First of all, you do get better at telling it. Second of all, you get better at empathizing and listening to other people's stories. That means better understanding of market stories, better understanding of your investors, their stories, and what their interests are. Because I got news for you. No VC rolled out of kindergarten with a fascination in bar charts because they loved bar charts. They love what the bar charts represent. The money, wealth, status, and power that money represents, right? And that's a story, okay? And it's the story, it's the data and the stories go hand in hand, right? When I told a customer support agent earlier today that I wasn't going to use their company anymore, I was just going to use Costco because it was a better experience, and then the agent I spoke to bent over backwards to try and get me a discount. Don't know if it was enough of a discount. Not going to mention the company's name right now because it's still open in my mind. But that was a story that happened to me. That's an experience. And I am a potential lost customer of that company now. And so when you know what all those potential stories are and those potential scenarios are, you are able to better control the information at a big picture level that you are able to articulate, because you understand the narrative and you understand the stories that make up that narrative. So based on that, we've spent a bit of time talking about the website here, and we see a lot of tools. We see some tipping of the hat and some little threads that we could pull on. But let's go back over to our GPT. So what do we have? First visible line, Gradle agents accelerate your content supply chain. If this had been the full experience, it would have failed to activate the story. The reveal shifts the perception, brings intention, reality, and relatability. Emotional trigger, real world messiness. This line reflects actual pain point in a marketer's lived world. It's short, sharp, and felt. Emotion aware. Enterprise content is broken. Embodies 3D story, surface level difficulty. It doesn't hit body level. How does it hit emotion? You say it hits level 3. Where is the evidence? There's a little best practice, by the way, for custom GPTs, and that's forcing it to make sure it checks the details of what it's built with. And this is something that I'll be copy pasting into some updates later. So I'm going to tell that to it. Let's see. Corporate speak, felt reality. As for felt reality, where is the desire? Who has it? Okay, let's see. Is it truly emotional aware? Connects with emotional states and experiences, acknowledges fears, frustrations, and desires. Source text. Content supply chain messy, broken. Messy and broken are emotional descriptions. Endless delays, struggling. Okay, so that's where that one was. Project stuck. Okay. It's proven itself to me. So what makes this a felt reality? Who's feeling it and where? Felt, visceral. Struggling, messy tools. Who's feeling this? Okay. I'd like to see a suggestion that takes it all to top marks. I'm still not sold that we are seeing a strong enough connection to the roles that you alluded to, and the feature text is highly dense. This makes it difficult to remember. And even with no explicit story, not like that, I'm not seeing enough of the emotive language. Doesn't have to be over the top. That will enable that stickiness. I am going to say I'm not particularly happy with my Go Narratives website story teardown today. Something it's not working as well as it was before we put the additional frameworks in, and that can happen if your instruction set's too big on these things. It can get wrapped around the axle. You want to make sure the formatting is as basic as possible in your documents that you're uploading. And I'm seeing some opportunities here for Go Narrative to improve this. So current message flirts with emotional truth, doesn't fully commit. Operational strategic logic. Okay. Current reference. Focus on creating while AI-driven workflows keep your brain consistent, relevant, growing faster. Accelerate is abstract. AI-driven workflows is technobabble. Emotion is buried under brief logic. So here's a recommended rewrite. You didn't become a marketer to babysit broken tools. See what I'm saying? I am going to take the transcript of this and I'm going to feed it probably into Claude 4 is out and its logic is pretty darn good. And I'm going to make sure that we've got the instructions fed back into this thing, because this is what we were getting previously. Hey, you know what? We're doing this real time. We're not hiding behind any smoke and mirrors. Okay, so let your team get back to creating with AI agents that clean up the chaos, catch the handoffs, and deliver your content on time. Okay. This is also a great example of how human beings in the process still is really important. Don't just accept what you're getting first time. And in fact, I would take this and I would pressure test it. This is high level, right? And my goodness, you know, Gradial may have like customer feedback they could put in as well, right? And we could take this and we could really next level it. Make sure that what, you know, does get back to, does that resonate, right? Do they feel like they're having to leave what they're doing to go and do this techno babble stuff and then come back to the details? Gradial helps your ops flow the way your ideas do. And see that with a bit of a nudge in the right direction, we're getting some good stuff here. Flow the way your ideas do. Come on, marketers, right? Who are the other folks that we had in that list? Marketing directors, ops, I don't know, maybe not as much, but for solving problems, yeah. CMOs, this is ideas flowing is something that those roles take pride in, right? And we've got a few other bits here. Get back to creating. Okay, so this is the breakdown, right? What we just went through. Here's the emo, why it's emo. Level, emo pyramid, level 4. Drag, relief. Something this is failing to tap into, that it has been provided very explicitly in the emo pyramid guidance, is the pain, the physical pain. Babysitting broken tools isn't enough. It would need to be more along the lines of the frustration of feeling your eyes roll to the back of your head for the umpteenth time. That does it, right? Physical. So the emo pyramid in this GPT needs to be, the way it's handling the emo pyramid guidance needs to be improved. Meet your customer's story. Creativity matters. Micromanaging shouldn't be the job. Emotions, frustration, urgency. Truth, more tools doesn't equal more control. From disorder, so transformation isn't just at a company level, and that's something that the TRIPS methodology is very specific about, and that the GPT is not using properly. And that is, the transformation is at the market level. What is happening in the world that is changing, that you relate to, that you help with? And Gradial have a very strong angle on this one, and it's the vast amounts of content and complexity, and it's AI and its agents. These are all things that first stuff's getting worse, the new stuff is being invented and getting better, and Gradial are harnessing that, right? What a great place to be for Gradial. It's why they got Series A funding, right? It's why they've got the customers they've got. Probably 150, 180,000 a month in reoccurring revenue, subscriptions or whatever. And reasons to believe is about the facts and the emotions, and innovation is about what Gradial in this case do. And I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to go into the details of this today, but you can get into that in our Storytelling for Action playbook, of which is available both up on Amazon, but the first chapter, which is the Power of 3D Story, is available as a download from our website for the small price of your email and name. And it would be awesome if we had the ticker up right now. So that would be great. We talk about that. And then I love this stuff because there's so much opportunity. Look at this. You didn't become a marketer, babysit broken tools. Okay. Or to feel your eyes roll into the back of your head for the umpteenth time. What we've seen here is we've seen the opportunity on this website that Gradial, who are doing a great job, right? Who secured some fantastic funding and doing really amazing stuff, to front and center on the web, above the fold at the very least, bring in that desire, show the difficulty, and show the feelings of that difficulty, show that frustration, and then demonstrate how you help get through it. And that is the power of 3D Story. And that is exactly why I am so excited for the fact that you can get this from Amazon today in its paper, a copy of it around here somewhere, because I love tech and I also love pen and paper. That's why I've been keeping a handwritten diary for all these years. Each serve a purpose, and the workbook is designed to get you out of technology, away from AI for a bit, and to write this stuff down, to come up with the fuel that you need to put in to tools like ChatGPT, to then come up with really powerful stories, understanding, writing it, and then eventually telling it, right? We need to be able to understand our story and the story of our business before we can effectively tell it. And it's very, very easy to rush into that too quickly. So all the way back up to what we've been talking about, the power of 3D Story. Yes, we've seen it in a website, but what can you do next? I want you to think about what the story that you're going to tell tomorrow. What is the story you're going to tell tomorrow? Could be business, could be pleasure, whatever. It doesn't have to be anything. I'm not going to tell you what it has to be, but I would love to hear how you get on. I would love to hear how you get on telling the story that you have figured out. I'd love to hear how you get on figuring out that story. You can reach out to me, gnhelp@gonarrative.com, and I also respond to every DM. So you can hit me up on DM on LinkedIn. And we have a ton of resources up on the website, including a business storytelling assessment you can take that will tell you your story type, 7 types of business story. You answer questions about where you are in your business, your career, your startup right now, and you'll find out your story type. And then you can use that as a filter, as a bellwether, as a starting point to look for stories and anecdotes and look at your own story and to tell your story with your story type. And that combined with your why is what we then use as a part of some of our early access offers, such as our story discovery, where we actually help you figure that story out, write it down. And as a founder, that is incredibly powerful. And I say to folks, that's the first investment you should make. It is a nominal, affordable investment that will get you on the way to understanding your story, wrapping your hands around it, your arms around it, and then using that in everything that you do. And all of that starts up on gonarrative.com. And like I said, you can contact me as well here. So thank you so much for stopping by and spending a bit of your Friday afternoon with me. I'm excited to go and figure out what story I'm going to tell tomorrow. And I want to hear what story you're going to tell tomorrow too. Have a great weekend. I hope you've had as much fun as I have. We'll leave a little bit of information up for you here as we head out. But thank you. Have a fantastic story and tell me what story you're going to tell tomorrow. Have a great one. Cheers.